I am Dr. Kumar Shantanu and welcome to CEC Gurukul Lectures. In our previous discussion, in our previous lecture, we had started our discussion with various divisions of pteridophytes. We have already covered the division Xylophyta, and in division Lycophyta we started our description and discussion over various biological aspects of Lycopodium. As far as the external morphology is concerned, let us continue our discussion from there, from the previous lecture. As we already discussed, Prizl divided the genus Lycopodium into two subgenera, that is Eurostachya and Rhopalostachya. Eurostachya was considered as a primitive subgenus, whereas Rhopalostachya is considered as more advanced subgenus as far as the features and characteristics of the plants are concerned. We have also discussed that the Eurostachya species, they had erect stem with dichotomous branching, roots were arising from the base, and leaves were and sporophylls were almost similar in size. Vegetative reproduction was taking place through bulbils. Now let us see the more advanced subgenus, that is Rhopalostachya. In Rhopalostachya species, the stems are initially prostrate and then after certain distance they become upright branches. The dichotomy is noticed in the initial branches and then they become monopodial. The initial dichotomously branched stem, amongst these two branches, one starts growing slowly and the other keeps on growing. The slowly growing branch gradually later on bears sporangium or strobilus, and the faster growing branch give rise to another branching. So at a later stage it appears more or less like a monopodial branching. We also encounter adventitious roots along entire length of the stem, because the most of the stem, they are prostrate, attached with the substratum. From the lower or basal part of the stem arises multiple adventitious roots. The primary roots are very short-lived or ephemeral in nature. In Rhopalostachya species, the sporophylls are smaller than the foliage leaves. Sporophylls are those structures which bear sporangium in their axils. These sporophylls are arranged compactly in a spiral arrangement or a whorl arrangement to form a cone or strobili. Lycopodium cernum, Lycopodium clavatum, Lycopodium densum are some of the examples of Rhopalostachya species. Now, having said that, let us understand various body parts of Lycopodium one by one. As far as root is concerned, the first formed root, that is the embryonic root, is ephemeral or short-lived. In older plants, we encounter adventitious roots which are very frequent, and they arise from pericycle or endodermis. So, in case of Lycopodium, the origin of root is endogenous. Also, we will find that these origin of roots, the roots do not come out directly towards the epidermis, but sometimes it has been seen that the younger roots, they grow parallel in the cortex towards the entire length of the stem, and after some time they arise. Such type of roots which grow through the cortical cells of the stem are also termed as cortical roots. So, cortical roots is one such unique feature which we have encountered in Lycopodium. The stem happens to be weak, circular in nature, slender and rhizomatous. When stem give rise to root-like structures, such stem are termed as rhizomatous. These rhizome-like structures, they arise from the lower side of the stem, which is nearer towards the substratum, in contact with the substratum. The stem can be erect also, or it could be pendant, while in some of the species they are creeping as well. The branching in stem is primarily dichotomous, but sometimes they are monopodial in nature also. The leaves in Lycopodium, they cover the entire stem and branches. So, these leaves are found on the stem and branches in a spiral arrangement. The leaves in Lycopodium are simple, sessile and scale-like. Those leaves which lack any pedicel, they are termed as sessile leaves. So, in case of Lycopodium, they lack any pedicel and they are attached with the stem with the help of a leaf base. The leaves are so small that they give a scale-like appearance, and each leaf is supplied with one small branching from the stele. These vascular structures provide the nutrition required and also helps in the assimilation of photosynthetes, which are produced by these leaves. They are spirally arranged and they are dense on the stem. Sometimes at the apex they are crowded, or they can be whorled in arrangement. In Lycopodium, the leaves are isophilous, or it could be anisophilous. When all the leaves are of same type, they are termed as isophilous leaves, whereas those places or those species which show different types of leaves, they are called as anisophilous. In Lycopodium, we encounter species with isophilous leaves also and species with anisophilous species. Most of the Urotachus genus are isophilous, whereas the more advanced subgenus they have anisophilous leaves. In the species Lycopodium volubile, we could encounter, we can see 4 rows of leaves. The 2 lateral rows of large and falcate leaves, 1 ventral row of small hair-like leaves, and 1 dorsal row of medium-sized acicular leaves. So, in such species, that is Lycopodium volubile, we have not just two forms of leaf, but more than three or more than two forms of leaves could be found. Now, let us look into the cellular details of various body parts of Lycopodium. As far as the anatomy of root is concerned, if we see the cross section of a root, we could very distinctly demarcate the entire structure into three distinct zones. The first and the outermost epidermis. The epidermis has single layered parenchymatous barrel shaped cells. These are thin walled cells and they give rise to root hairs in pairs and sometimes unicellular hairs also. Now, the presence of root hairs in pairs is one of the unique feature of Lycopodium root. And the origin of these paired root hair is also very unique. The epidermal cell, which is destined to give rise to root hair, it divides anticlinally or periclinally, and each of these cell give rise to unicellular elongated root hairs. The second layer inside the epidermis is cortex. The cortex of root is composed of parenchymatous cells. In the older roots, we also encounter thick-walled cells for mechanical support. In younger roots, we could find that entire cortex made up of parenchymatous cells uniformly arranged. The third layer starts from endodermis, or we can say it starts from pericycle. The pericycle and enclosing xylem and phloem gives rise to a structure called as stele. Stele in case of Lycopodium is of primitive nature. It is a protostele, a monarch. It could be a monarch with one protoxylem. It could be diarch with two protoxylem bunches, or it could be triarch with three protoxylem groups radiating outwards. The xylem is mostly curved and phloem lies in between the arms of the xylem. As far as the anatomy of stem is concerned, it can also be distinguished into three zones. The outer protective epidermal zone, which is made up of thick outer wall, and it has waxy coating called as cuticle. Behind the or inside the epidermis lies cortex. Cortex has different anatomy in different species. In certain species, it is homogeneous in nature and it is entirely parenchymatous. Whereas in heterogeneous species, the cortex can further be divided into three zones. The outer chlorenchymatous zone, the middle parenchymatous zone, and inner sclerenchymatous zone. Because of the presence of chlorenchymatous cortex, the stem of most of the Lycopodium is photosynthetic in nature. The inner cortex, which is made up of or which is formed by sclerenchymatous tissues, they help in giving mechanical strength to the stem of Lycopodium. The cortex is restricted by endodermis in the inside and it is delimited by epidermis from the outside. The endodermis is very much distinct even in young even in the young stems, and it is characterized or recognized because of the presence of Casparian strip. As we have seen in roots, similarly in stem, the stele is of protostele type. These protosteles has only primary xylem and primary phloem, and there is no pith at the center. The xylem forms the central core, which is surrounded by phloem. The xylem is exarch in nature, and the protostele could be of three types. If we could see the difference between those species having homogeneous cortex and heterogeneous cortex, then we could easily see that in those species where the cortex is heterogeneous, the inner cortex is made up of sclerenchymatous tissues, and middle one is made up of parenchymatous cortex, and the outermost is made up of chlorenchymatous tissues. The stele could be plectostelic, or it could be mixed protostele, or it could be actinostele. But in all the three cases, the stele remains protostelic in nature. In actinostelic stele, the xylem is star shaped, and the phloem is found between the arms of xylem, whereas in plectostele, the xylem is in the form of plates, such as in the species of Lycopodium clavatum, in the species of Lycopodium campanulatum. In mixed protostele, the xylem and phloem are uniformly distributed, which can be seen in Lycopodium cernum. Here in the diagram, we could see some of the different types of protostele. Here, although the section is from different pteridophytes, but this will make us understand how these protosteles look like. So, this is a haplostele. Here in the actinostele, that xylem is found in a star shaped structure. In plectostele, the xylem is found in patches of plates, and in mixed protostele, the xylem and phloem are interspersed with each other. As far as the anatomy of leaf is concerned, the leaf is triangular in outline, and the outline is disrupted by the presence of stomata. In some species, the stomata are present on both the surfaces, and such conditions are called as amphistomatose condition, whereas those conditions where stomata are present on only one surface, they are termed as unistomatose conditions. The outer epidermis is covered by a thick cuticle which prevents any further desiccation because of the direct exposure to dry atmosphere. In case of Lycopodium campanulatum and Lycopodium volubile, the stomata are hypostomatose. That means in these species, the stomata is confined mostly on the lower surface. The mesophyll in case of Lycopodium leaf is absolutely undifferentiated, and they are made up of chlorophyllous cells. These are the cells which are primarily responsible for the photosynthetic activity of Lycopodium leaf. A median concentric vascular bundle with xylem is also found, which is surrounded by phloem tissues. So, each leaf is supplied by one vascular bundle where xylem is surrounded by phloem. Since the size of leaf are very small, they are scaly leaves and sessile leaves, so they do not require any elaborate branching pattern of these vascular bundles. Now, let us talk about the vegetative reproduction in Lycopodium. Vegetative reproduction takes place by multiple different structures. One of the most common structure of vegetative reproduction is gemma, or sometimes also very popularly or very commonly known as bulbils. Now, these gemma or bulbils, they are lateral outgrowths from the stem, and they take the place of leaves at the top. They are mostly found above the sporangiophils or above the strobilus. They consist of short reduced axis, which is surrounded by thick, very fleshy leaves with stored food materials. Now, these structures, they fall on ground and they wait for the favorable conditions to arrive, and they grow into a new plant. Because the leaves are very thick and fleshy, they contain stored food materials, so they have enough nutrition for the formation of a new plant. This can be understood with the help of this diagram, where we could see that on a branch the sporophylls are found, which bear sporangium, and just below the crown some of the leaves, they become fleshy and thick and they form a rounded structure. Now, these rounded structures, they fall on ground. These are also termed as bulbils or gemma. So, these gemma fall on the ground and then they start germinating because of the enough nutritional material they possess, and then they give rise to a new sporophytic generation. The other method of vegetative reproduction is with the help of fragmentation. Fragmentation is assisted by death and decay of older plants of the stem, which leads to separation of younger branches which grow into new plants. These younger branches, when get separated from the older plant because of their decay, they are now the new younger plants, and thus from one parent plant to younger offspring plant has originated. The other mode of vegetative reproduction is formation of resting buds. The tips of apical bud of rhizome and branches, they store food material and they are surrounded by a bunch of leaves. So, in winter rest of the plant dies, but these structures or these resting buds, they rest and they develop into new plants. One more structure that is root tubercles are structures with which the Lycopodium reproduces vegetatively. So, what are root tubercles? These are group of cells with stored food material, and they are protected by thick walls and germinate into new plants whenever they find favorable conditions. So they perinate till the conditions are adverse. Because of the thick wall, they are protected from any adverse environment, and when the environmental conditions are suitable, they germinate into new plants. Last but not the least, the vegetative reproduction in Lycopodium takes place by the formation of adventitious buds. In the leaves, epidermal cells proliferate near the base and grow into buds. These buds are capable of germinating into new plants, and thus a new sporophytic plant could arise from these adventitious buds. The other mode of reproduction, that is sexual mode of reproduction, takes place with the help of spores. All the species of Lycopodium are homosporous. So the spores are produced in a structure called as sporangium, and these spores are of similar size, so the conditions are homosporic. In case of Lycopodium, the spores are produced in a specialized structure called as sporangium. These sporangium are found on the axils of leaf. These leaves are now termed as sporophylls. In case of Eurostachya species, every leaf on the plant is a sporophyll, is a potential sporophyll. But in case of Rhopalostachya, the leaves near the apices bear sporangia, and they are called as sporophylls. Sometimes these sporophylls are distinctly smaller than the foliage leaves, and these aggregation of sporophylls, they are called as strobilus. Strobilus has a central axis on which they are spirally arranged sporophylls are found, and then these sporophylls bear sporangia in their axils. As far as the position of sporangium on a sporophyll is concerned, they are mostly axillary in position. For example, in Lycopodium selago and Lycopodium phlegmaria. They could be on the dorsal side of a sporophyll, also termed as epiphyllous sporophylls. For example, in case of Lycopodium cernum and Lycopodium clavatum. And the third position which also have been encountered in Lycopodium is the subfoliar position of sporangium. They are not on the sporophyll, but they are little towards the sporophyll, and the example happens to be Lycopodium squarosum. So this way Lycopodium reproduces with the help of vegetative reproduction, and these spores are part of sexual reproduction. When they will germinate, gives rise to gametophyte giving rise to male and female sex organs, and then fertilization takes place, and the entire life cycle is completed. So in our next lecture we will try to understand and see various different types of gametophyte of Lycopodium, and we will also continue our journey and understand various biological features of the species Selachinella. Hope you have enjoyed this presentation. Thank you so much.